That stupid robot fight.
Oh, it happened. I missed it.
No. Don't even bother.
You didn't miss anything.
A washing machine overloaded, shaking in the back corner in the laundry room is more exciting.
Don't ruin it.
The advice provided on this podcast is general advice only. All statements made are considered by the participants to be accurate, but accuracy cannot be guaranteed. It has been prepared without taking into account your objectives, financial situations, or needs. All participants in this podcast, including guests, may have a financial interest in any or all of the products or services mentioned. Before acting on this advice, you should consider the appropriateness of the advice, having regard to your own objectives, financial situations, and needs. If any private products are detailed on this podcast, you should obtain a product disclosure statement relating to the products and consider its contents before making any decisions. Where quoted, past performance is not indicative of future results.
Recorded October 20th, 2017. It's the Money Path Podcast with your hosts, Bob Iacchino and Mike Arnold, founders of Path Trading Partners. On episode 94, the What and the Why is sponsored by MotiveWave. Go to pathtradingpartners.com and download your 14-day free trial. So let's join Bob and Mike with the conversation of news and the markets.
All right, the first match was horrible. The first match was actually funny, but where the one guy just drives with the fist out and knocks over the other robot. It was totally scripted, though. I mean, it was like WWE with big robots.
Don't insult the WWE.
It was WWE with big robots. I think they need to make a remote control instead of having the people in them then, because then you can actually have much more carnage. So next thing, I'm calling for the remote control. It did get a lot of views.
Yeah, it also got a lot of dislikes also.
Hang on, just not even worth watching? What did they do? Just kind of clunk into each other?
No, I actually like when the last battle with the chainsaw, where the guy's like has the chainsaw and is cutting off the other robot's fingers and everything. That's, it's...
The nice thing about it is the suggested videos that popped up were BattleBot videos, and I watched those, and those are awesome.
Yeah, BattleBots rocks.
Yeah, so that was the only good thing, is the suggested videos after you watch that trite.
Like the end of last season of BattleBots with Tombstone, that's one bad robot. Tombstone is that's a fun one to watch. When it gets a hold of that massive spinner just tears the other robot to shreds. Now that's some good quality entertainment.
There's no skill in that robot fighting thing, but there is great skill in BattleBots, and we'll just stop there.
Well, therefore you've summed it up. And in breaking shocking news, Blue Apron is laying off hundreds of employees. That's laying off 6% of its staff as part of a, quote, company-wide realignment of personnel to support its strategic priorities. Well, their stock price, sure, it did get above $6 for about a day and a half, and now it's back to $5.13. So not good. Nothing to touch there. Nothing to see there. Move along. How's this all going to shake out, Bob? I need a magic 8-ball prediction with Blue Apron. What's going to happen? Is it just going to languish?
It's going to languish and be bought by Amazon for about $13 million.
Well, what would their stock price have to be then?
It will be delisted.
It will be delisted? Is it in your going to zero corner?
It is, because it's very much a similar model to Groupon and to a certain degree GoPro, where they're imminently copyable by people with a lot more money.
Who copied Groupon?
Everybody. Living Social.
Yeah, but Groupon bought Living Social.
Yeah, I know, but there's more deal websites out there than there are I Love Mike Arnold websites. There's a lot of those.
There are no I Love Mike Arnold websites, so that was a bad analogy.
No, look, if you just put Google deal, discounts, deals, 73 websites pop up. It's crazy. Sorry.
Why didn't Groupon sell?
They had a bid out there from Google, I believe.
Yeah,
for like $2 million, which by the way, they would have been awfully hard to beat had that happened, because Google would have put it, all their power behind it. But Amazon's the one who started Living Social, so it amazes me that Groupon was able to buy that from Amazon.
Well, maybe Amazon goes, this long-term business model is not really.
Yeah, you're just trying to get a percentage of the discounts. It's ridiculous. But I mean, Groupon was the first one.
Well, speaking of Amazon, Amazon's now developing its own sportswear line and is working with Nike and Under Armour's manufacturer to do it. So
Amazon sportswear?
Amazon sportswear line, they're going to it's in the early stages, but they're looking to compete with things like Lululemon and, Nike and Under Armour. And
hey, just real quick, and then we'll jump back to that. 10 sites to find the best deals. Brad's Deals, DealNews.com, Fat Wallet, Got a Deal, Groupon, Living Social, Retail Me Not, and Slick Deals. Go ahead, Mike. You'll be able to get Amazon sportswear on all 10 of those deal sites, is my guess, because it's not going to be popular.
Will they have a blue apron?
So you don't think Amazon's...
why would anyone...
I wonder what the price point's going to be.
I wonder what the branding is going to be. Why would anyone say, God, I really am happy with that Amazon yoga pants that I got?
Oh, were you actually in the market for yoga pants?
No, I mean, that's what the main product in sportswear is. I mean, I guess shoes and yoga pants. I mean, Lululemon's entire thing is yoga pants. I know they have other stuff, but their entire business model is built around yoga pants.
I don't know. You put the word Prime in front of it, Prime sneakers, Prime turtleneck, it might work.
Turtleneck? How's turtleneck related to... I'm just wondering.
They're not going to go to casual wear?
Casual wear? I don't know.
Well, look,
I think they should have their own line of ties.
If they're talking about taking on Nike and Lululemon, they're talking about shoes, those wicking workout shirts, those dry fit workout shirts, and yoga pants.
I like dry fit workout shirts. That's my contribution.
I don't like the way that they cling to my overly muscular upper body.
Oh, brother. Really?
It's tough when you're built like Russell Crowe from Gladiator.
I think that you were going to say Russell Crowe from Now.
I go back and forth between Russell Crowe from Gladiator and Fat Russell Crowe from Nice Guys, or whatever that last movie is.
Yeah, I mean, he was. Yeah, when I saw him in Nice Guys, it was like, what? Because Gladiator was like always on. You turn on the TV at 2 a.m. Some station is showing Gladiator. Okay, so. And then if you watch that back to back with Nice Guys, you're like, that's not the same person.
That's actually.
I actually have, looking at Lulu's stock, pretty interesting. There is a massive horizontal channel that's formed. So if we get a close on a daily basis below 57.39, it would trigger a short with the eventual target of 51.50 area. And if we close above 63.31, we get a long with an eventual target of 69.23.
I like it.
So we don't know which way it's going to go, but that's our options. Maybe if Nike comes out, it's going to be a short.
There's been many a discussion about the end of the sportswear, activewear as everyday wear craze. And I don't think it's ever going to happen. I think, especially for women, yoga pants is the new denim. And much like, there was a move to casual in the late 90s, starting in Los Angeles and bleeding into the rest of the country, as Los Angeles tends to do. It tends to bleed and pus all over the rest of the country. But where guys were starting to wear jeans on casual days to work, and a lot of people were in jeans and Converse, and obviously I've mentioned on the show, I'm a huge fan of that, but I've been a fan of that since I was a kid. Anyway, jeans never went away. Jeans just got nicer. They got, dark denims with less stitching, and kind of became, that's what's happening with activewear. And I think that's why Amazon would get in. There's been talk of it going away. I do see more suits in the city, but I also see more nice jeans. And I also, like when I go out socially, I see more women wearing yoga style pants as their actual pants with something nicer on top. It's not going away. But it'll just be very interesting to me to see if Amazon is able to brand something that people are like, wow, those are those Amazon pants. I've heard about those. I mean, Stafford might be right. The Prime pants.
Right.
If they stamp Prime right on the ass.
Prime ass.
It's Prime rump roast right here.
Well, when they build Alexa into the yoga pants, then we'll know it's good.
Oh, wow. What if they turn into wearables?
Yes.
You're getting a blood clot in your leg. Your pants just don't. I have a USDA Prime tattoo on my right butt cheek.
Do you really?
Yeah. It says USDA Prime Choice.
Oh, gosh. I did not ever want to know that. Because now
The whole audience knows.
The other side says ground chuck.
The other one says reserved for cattle feed.
This show's already gone off the rails. Well, speaking of food and everything, Costco just launched an online delivery service, Costco Groceries. Customers will now be able to order from 500 non-perishable items, including food and household goods. If you order more than $75 worth of goods, 2-day shipping is absolutely free from Costco Grocery. So Costco's getting into it now also. I mean, you don't just have to go to the store anymore. You can just, hey, there's another option for your toilet paper, Bob.
There you go.
And Walmart's answer to Amazon, its own web mall. So Walmart is nearing a deal to host Lord & Taylor section on Walmart.com, and then they're looking to expand it to other brands. The world's biggest retailer, Walmart, is near a deal with Lord & Taylor that would give department store dedicated space on Walmart.com. Over the next year, Walmart wants to, quote, elevate the Walmart.com brands. So they're redesigning the website and working on partnerships to gain access to more premium partners. Quote, Walmart is positioning itself as a clear number 2 in the space.
Wow, a web mall. That's so 1996.
Well, that's what they're just going to roll in a bunch of other people's goods. Like Lord & Taylor will continue to operate its own website, but they'll also have stuff on the Walmart.com, and the department store chain will own the inventory and fulfill the orders from the site. The only difference, said a person familiar with the plan, is that it happens to be on Walmart.com. So,
Esta popular carnicería se encuentra en
what?
Again, one of those instant play videos. I hate those.
We got some earnings this week.
We did.
Netflix third quarter revenue $2.99 billion, expected by versus 2.99 is what they booked versus expectations of 2.97. Everybody looks at the streaming ads, 850K domestic for 774 expected. International streaming 4.45 million, expected 3.72. So they beat those numbers handily, and they see Q4 total net streaming ads at 6.3 million versus estimates of 6.29 million. Look at those content spending numbers. So 2013, they're at 2 billion. 2014, 3 billion. 15, 4 billion. 16, 5 billion. 17, 6 billion. 2018, 7 to 8 billion. And the total future commitments that they've already made is 17 billion in future spending commitments for producing their own material.
That's lower than I thought in terms of the trajectory of spending. Not in terms of the spend, but the good thing about their own product is they pay it once. There's no renewing. There's no nothing. And if they develop good content, there's going to be people that are going to watch it for years.
They paid $10 million an episode for the brand new Star Trek Discovery. They don't own it. They don't get to play it in the States. CBS owns it. CBS got to make that show for free, which is why they don't care about the quality, and it's terrible.
So I would guess that's simply because that they're not willing to sell the brand, right? So Amazon financed for the exclusivity of it.
Yeah, it means that Netflix is reckless, and they're actually doing short-term deals just to keep eyeballs on their site, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think that was a great deal for CBS. That was a terrible deal for Netflix, because in 2019, every Star Trek show that's on Netflix will leave and go to the CBS streaming site. So it's reckless, and especially since Disney's pulling out, which means all Star Wars, all Marvel will be gone. You know, they should invest in their own owned content and not pay for other people's content that they have no control over.
Yeah, they don't have a choice, which is why I'm assuming these numbers are going up the way they're going up. They don't have a choice. I mean, again, I watched Avengers Civil War yesterday, just to have it in the background. It's not the kind of thing I would download another app to watch, but I mean, I've got enough of these apps I can stream with now. I mean, I've got Showtime, I've got HBO, I've got Hulu, I've got Amazon, and I've got Netflix, and I've got TBS, and I've got ESPN, and I've got Comcast Sportsnet for the Cubs. And I mean, I've just got so many of them that it's getting to be there. At some point, there's going to be some sort of move to consolidate those as well, but that's going to cost. It's just not going to happen. It's the weirdest situation now. You get somebody like me who finally became a cord cutter, and now I'm like, I got to get rid of some of these apps. I mean, it's crazy. You just load up your phone with these things, and next thing you know, you're just hopping around looking for things. It's ridiculous.
That's my biggest problem is, you know, I never know where to find stuff anymore. It's like I know what I want to watch, and I'm like, all right, was it on this one? No. This one? No. This one? No. It's like I need a way to consolidate it and just say, I want to watch this, and it starts playing. Well, speaking of Netflix, I'm now watching for a pullback to the 180, between 181 and 187 will be a nice pullback into its weekly rotation zone. It set a high right after earnings of 204, and now it's already dropped to 194. So I'm still looking for it to drop possibly about 10 more bucks. Just my update on Netflix. Morgan Stanley, Goldman Sachs both reported.
Good numbers, bad stock performance after the numbers. Go ahead.
Why don't you go through the numbers?
Morgan Stanley's EPS 83 cents versus an expectation of 81 cents. Revenue $9.2 billion versus an expectation of $9.01 billion. That's Morgan Stanley. Goldman Sachs EPS 502 versus an expectation of 417, and revenue $8.33 billion versus an expectation of $7.54 billion.
Morgan Stanley stock didn't. I mean, it's
shot up. Well, I'm talking about that the day of. Morgan Stanley's stock shot up off the open and then sold off all day long.
Right now, it's back. It's higher than when it was then. It's the one that's moving up. It's now at 50.58. It closed on earnings on this down day 49.12. Goldman Sachs though is languishing. It had a big sell-off. It has recovered from that, but it's not at recent highs.
Right. It's still above where it closed on earnings day, but it is not higher than the high it made on earnings day. Right. So it was, I honestly, I was looking for reasons why it was selling off so hard, and I couldn't really find any. Even though I do the why on this show, I don't really care. We didn't have a position I was worried about. It was just interesting to me. As to why they were getting beaten up so bad, and I just couldn't really square that circle, so just left it alone, didn't worry about it.
What does that mean?
What?
Square that circle.
It's a derivative of square peg in a round hole. If you have a square peg and you can square the circle, you can fit the square peg in the square hole. That's all. It's just a derivative of that. Like, square this circle for me means explain it to me.
Gotcha.
I can Google the etymology of square this circle if you'd like.
You mean you're going to get Google the bug history?
Bug history? What's bug history?
I thought that was entomology.
Mike is trying to triangle the rhombus.
Yes.
Origin of square, this circle.
It's not a saying I hear that often.
I use it a lot. Squaring the circle is a problem proposed by ancient geometers. Sorry. It is
Geometers? I like geometers better.
Geometers. It's the challenge of constructing a square with the same area as a given circle by using only a finite number of steps with a compass and a straight edge.
Sounds like too much work.
Yeah.
So, American Express also earnings this week beat 150 versus expectations of 148. Sees fiscal year adjusted earnings per share of 580 to 590 versus 560 to 580. So they raised their guidance. Stock, that stock's interesting. It sort of gapped way down, then closed higher, but it's formed a nice double top on a potential double top on a daily. We need a close below 90, but if we did get a close below 90, let's see, what's the full target on that? 86.72. So I'm going to be watching to see if that double top plays out in American Express. What else do we have? In the cell phone realm, we had Verizon reporting Q3 earnings per share 98, and they matched expectations of 98 cents. And they, let's see, revenue 31.7 billion, expectations 31.1 billion. That stock's another one. It opened, shot up, and then completely collapsed back down.
Which one is that?
Verizon. Verizon opened when they reported earnings 50.05, hit a high of 51.18, and then closed at 49.05. Now trading 49.15. So that actually sucked a lot of people in. It broke above a major resistance level of 50, and then just couldn't sustain it. Collapsed back down. Nothing. I don't have any trades on Verizon. It's nothing I'd be touching though. Nothing looking interesting there. What's going on in crude?
Crude's dull.
What do you mean it's dull?
Crude's very dull. Crude rallied again. Crude had a weird sort of week. It really didn't go anywhere. This is, if you've ever seen our educational series on candlestick math, which you can find on our website. This is a really good week to understand candlestick math, because when you look at a daily chart, there's a bunch of rallies and there's a sell-off, then there's another rally off the R zone, and there's a potential double top forming on the daily. But then
I was just going to say that with the potential double top, which, let me just cite it, then you can go back. That would be on a close below 49.10, and it would have a single target of 46.29. So there you go. Back to you.
Crude oil this week opened at 51.43 and is currently at 51.66. And with the volatility of crude oil, 5% a day sometimes. Not recently, but we've had that. That's almost the definition of having done nothing. We got large draws in crude oil, both in the API and the EIA numbers, and we got large builds in refined products, and we got a drop in refinery utilization. So let's kind of go through that. You would expect crude draws, although the draws that we got were larger than expected draws based on Platts, S&P Platts' survey of producers and users. The draws were larger than expected, and then the builds of refined products were larger than expected. The interesting part about that, and what plays along with the themes that we've been talking about on this show, is the refinery drop-off was mainly from kind of the West Coast refiners who were not affected by the hurricanes. So we saw refinery utilization go from about 88% down to about 83 and change. And again, that was refinery turnaround on the West Coast as they prepare to sell winter blend gasoline and diesel fuel. So refinery turnaround is a phrase they use for when they shut down certain parts of the refinery, perform the mechanical adjustments needed to make the different blend, and then they start the refinery again. So it wasn't that they were slow to recover in the hurricane-affected areas. Hurricane Nate did actually shut down some oil production and some refined production, but there was no noted damage in those areas. So those refineries could have contributed to that. But when you broke down that number, it was mostly West Coast refineries. So again, it's product of turnaround. The build and refine product is to be expected because they're building up the stockpiles again that were depleted when the hurricanes moved from those areas, and you were able to start shipping refined product again, but yet the refineries hadn't recovered to replace that product. So now we're seeing draws come out of crude as the refineries build those stockpiles up again, and we're seeing builds in the refined product. So it's not they're not unexpected figures, but they're not price-moving figures either. The only thing that really moved prices this week was the tensions between Iraq and the northern region of Iraq, which is Kurdistan. Kurdistan, or the Kurdish region, produces 400,000 barrels a day. Iraq produces 4.7 million barrels a day, so it's a little under 10% of their total production. Kurdistan had a referendum similar to Catalonia and Spain, Catalonia and Madrid. They voted overwhelmingly for independence. They did not declare independence yet. But the Iraqi central government sent soldiers in there to essentially secure the oil fields, which would be the only thing that the Kurds would have to supply an economy to an independent state. Turkey is also against that independence. So there was this idea that they might not be able to ship their crude oil, which goes through Turkey. Turkey assured the world that they were not going to shut the pipelines. Iraq also has no ability to shut that down. They could only go to Turkey. So the crude oil flows from the Kurdish region through Turkey. Iraq's central government has no control over it. So once the market realized Turkey wasn't going to shut that flow off, we sold off again. That's where the rally came from, and that's where the sell-off came from. So again, oil opened up nowhere and went nowhere. Still 51.5 or so. No real news on it.
And in the WTF and crime doesn't pay segment, South Texas man stole 1.2 million in fajitas from the county.
You just make segments up now.
No, this is actually the news this week.
You don't make the stories up. You make segments up. If there was something you wanted to talk about,
we've had the WTF segment, but
badly framed, crooked wall picture segment.
I've never had a badly framed wall picture segment because that would make no sense.
Oh, yeah.
But in the crime doesn't pay, who steals $1.2 million in fajitas?
Someone who's as hungry.
Yeah, I can't think of a better thing to steal off the top of my head.
This is actually an interesting story. He did this over a series of years, but the scheme unraveled August 7th when he took the day off from work and somebody else answered the phone from the Cameron County Juvenile Justice Department kitchen. A driver from Lavitt Food Service was calling to inform the kitchen of an 800-pound delivery of fajitas. The woman who answered the phone was alarmed. The Juvenile Department's kitchen does not serve fajitas. And the driver told her he'd been delivering fajitas there for the last 9 years. So what this guy was doing was getting fajitas delivered, and then he already had them pre-sold to other places that wanted fajitas. So he'd take delivery and then take it out the back door and then re-deliver it to other places he already had sold the fajitas to. And he ended up over the 9 years, 1.251 million worth of fajita orders.
That's spectacular.
And the county, what's shocking to me is the county never caught this. I mean, that's not like
golf clapping for this guy. That is spectacular. Yeah, make sure we give more responsibility to government.
Yeah, that's sort of what this is like. You lost 1.2 million in fraudulent fajita orders you didn't know you were getting over 9 years, and it was never caught on your books. Really?
Up and down the chain of authority, people were signing off on these things. It's upsetting because the auditor gets a detailed invoice of where it states the breakdown of what's delivered, so they should have seen it. The department will continue to strive to provide necessary and appropriate care, custody, and protection of these juveniles in its custody, as well as protection of public monies that was spent on fajitas that didn't get eaten. And I'm sure these kids would have loved the fajitas, too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, because I imagine it's better than what they're getting.
Fajitas are delicious. Again, let's give government more responsibility. They're so good at stuff.
No. And in Bad Hacking Hangout, which is now becoming a weekly segment because Pizza Hut was hacked, the company says.
I'm sorry, time out. Is there any privately owned company that would get 1.2 million in food deliveries and not notice that they don't serve the food?
No.
Let's move on. I'm sorry.
What if it was 1.2 million in pizza?
That is a better theft, in my opinion. I'd order from the guy.
Pizza Hut told customers by email on Saturday that some of their personal information may have been compromised. It happened 2 weeks, and again, people are angry because it took Pizza Hut 2 weeks to report it after they knew. So people's credit cards. Let's see, they got the names, billing zip codes, delivery addresses, email addresses, payment card information, meaning the account number, expiration date, and that secret number that's not very secret that you need. Because everybody now asks for it, and you're not supposed to store that number, but they were storing the number. So if your information was hacked, they essentially got all the information they could need to order additional stuff on your credit card.
It was 28 hours, and they reported it in 2 weeks. Is that right?
Yeah.
That doesn't seem like a lot to me, to be honest. Well, I guess I'm comparing it to Equifax. So there's that.
Or how about Yahoo, who didn't report it for 2 years?
The bar has been lowered by Equifax and the IRS.
And in something that people should know if you are on WPA2 Wi-Fi encryption, there was a severe Wi-Fi security flaw called the crack attack, which allows hackers to steal credit card, bank infos, and more. So if you're using a wireless network and it has the WPA2 Wi-Fi encryption, there's already Microsoft updates that prevent this. If you're on Microsoft, Apple says they have the stuff in place. I think they're rolling it out. And other companies directly on the routers are providing patches, but you should make sure you do research this and get the patches, because if you don't, here's what they do. Attackers find vulnerable WPA2 networks, then make a carbon copy of it and impersonate the MAC addresses, then change the Wi-Fi channel. This new fake network acts as a man-in-the-middle, so when a device attempts to connect to the original network, it can be forced to bypass it and connect to the rogue one, and then it can essentially decipher all the information going across it. So if you're typing in your credit card information or your bank account information or your social security number, it can essentially intercept anything on that WPA2 network.
Wow.
So check for patches for the equipment you're using and the operating systems you're using. That's our public service here. Apple has already patched serious vulnerabilities in the WPA2 Wi-Fi standard that protects many modern Wi-Fi networks. The company said the exploits have been addressed in the iOS, tvOS, watchOS, and macOS betas that are currently available to developers and will be rolling out to customers soon. And Microsoft says it's already fixed the problem for customers running the supported versions of Windows. Quote, "We have released security update to address this issue. Companies who apply or customers who apply the update or automatic updates enabled will be protected." So if you don't have automatic updates enabled, make sure you check for your updates.
Unbelievable.
Now, in our electric and self-driving car and just automotive segment, Apple, did you see this, Stafford? The Apple's new self-driving attempts to be one fully contained unit.
Yep.
That can be bolted on top of a car.
People have been seeing them around California. It has six LiDARs on top.
Yeah, it has 6 LiDARs.
Light radar driven by light?
Yeah,
right?
using laser and infrared.
Gotcha.
So they put it on all the corners and
you guys told me last week, but I don't remember.
Yeah. So 6 LiDAR units on the front and back. A self-contained unit, so it's sort of designed to just be bolted onto a roof, and it can virtually make any car, using its tech. So interesting that that's the route they're taking. But what's also interesting is I think the only company that thinks they can do self-driving tech without LiDAR, because every company is using LiDAR. The only company that's not using LiDAR is our favorite, Tesla. So, and in Tesla news, Tesla fired hundreds of employees after supposed company-wide performance reviews.
Yes.
They weren't fired, Mike. They were not fired. It was a separation. They made corrections to many press releases that were released out there. It is a separation.
A non-voluntary separation. Which is what? If it's a
they just don't want to look like they're trying to save as much money as they can because they can't build these cars.
What's interesting is also when you're doing these mass layoffs or firings, you're supposed to report it to the California board if it's going to be more than 50, which they didn't do. And then they said, oh, well, we're like at this point, there's estimates of up to 1,200 people were all laid off at once. The company's people who came out on CNBC this week said, yeah, it was a bunch of the hired paid people. The managers were rewriting past performance reviews. Some people had never had a bad performance review and they were laid off for performance reasons. They were told they got a phone call that morning or an email saying, don't come to work. No warning for a lot of these people. So, and then.
What did the email say?
Huh?
What did the email say?
Don't come to work.
Wow.
And Tesla's like, no, they're spinning this whole thing, but they might be in a little hot water over this one. So
and the stock's doing what?
The stock is sitting at 346.42. Still, I have on my weekly chart a massive potential double top, which would not trigger until it got a close below the 303 level, with the full target being 220 area on that. Interesting enough, JP Morgan just today, I think, cut Tesla's price. Now, this is sort of a stupid price target cut. They cut it to 195 from 200. Like, that's a day volatility in Tesla. At least they didn't play that other stupid game by raising the price target versus versus Tesla products that don't exist. God. But that's so Tesla's they're sort of playing fast and loose with stuff again, and I don't know when it's going to come back and bite them, but it's getting interesting out there. They're getting more and more class action lawsuits. Now they are getting these employee layoff lawsuits, and
starting to look a lot more like DeLorean than General Motors.
It's starting to look like, and there's might be a lot of cockroaches running out of the walls pretty soon.
Back to the Future 2038, the remake, is going to have a Tesla.
No more reboots. Good. No reboots.
I don't think we can stop them, Stafford. I'm sorry.
Did you really figure out a way to get Zappa into the show?
So, if anybody is a musician out there, Carvin, a 70-year-old audio manufacturer of amplifiers for rock stars, and they made guitars. You know, people like Steve Vai, Alan Holdsworth, and believe it or not, Frank Zappa actually advertised for Carvin. He was an advertisement. Carvin is going out of business. So this is just continuing my little segment of the rock and roll meltdown, because we're seeing Gibson guitars really starting to falter with their debt problems, and their quality control problems are quite known now in the industry. So just keeping the pulse of what's happening in the musical industry space.
Breaking news that belongs on the show: Bitcoin surged above $6,000.
Did it?
Yep.
I had my targets. And if people that's a good tie with cryptocurrencies, because people should be checking out our YouTube channel with all our crypto updates. Now I got to see what the chart is. But in other news, Russia is issuing the crypto ruble.
There you go.
Crypto ruble. Russian President Vladimir Putin has officially stated that Russia will issue its own crypto ruble at a closed-door meeting in Moscow. According to the official, the state-issued cryptocurrency cannot be mined and will be issued and controlled and maintained only by the authorities. The crypto rubles can be exchanged for regular rubles at any time. Though if the holder is unable to explain where the crypto rubles came from, a 13% tax will be levied. What was that?
Never mind. Go ahead.
In other news, we talked a few weeks ago about how Ben Bernanke was going to be at that crypto conference in Canada.
Yeah.
So this week he came out endorsing Ripple. Ripple's tech is promising, works with regulators, which is a different thing with Ripple. You know, a lot of people view it as a negative. I actually view it as a positive because it's got a lot of legs, meaning it's going to remain around because it's actually one working with banks and regulators and Visa and Apple and everybody else to, you know, with inroads into the cryptocurrency space. So I just think Ripple fills a different niche rather than like a Bitcoin or Ethereum or Monero.
Ripple's my second favorite cryptocurrency.
People's Bank of China inches closer to digital currencies. PBOC has completed trial runs on the algorithms needed for digital currency supply, take a step closer to addressing technological challenges associated with digital currencies, according to top officials. The successful simulation of money supply paves the way for the central bank to become the future sole regulator and policymaker governing the value of digital fiat currency in China. So that's what they're looking to do in China. In other news here, the CFTC, what's the CFTC, Bob?
Commodity Futures Trading Commission.
They aligned with the SEC and agreed now that ICO tokens can be commodities.
Wow. So
if you're going to be doing ICOs, which we've talked about repeatedly, they're going to fall into the regulation probably under commodities and the commodity rules. So the quote is, there's no inconsistency between the SEC's analysis and the CFTC's determination that virtual currencies are commodities and that virtual tokens may be commodities or derivatives contracts depending on the particular facts and circumstances. That is the crypto update. Let's see. What was Bitcoin ran up today already to... What was the high? 60.54. Our next target is 60.62, then 61.24, then 62.21. So there we go. Came out really nice, catching on the 4-hour rotation zone. 8 pushing the price, launched it up to the next targets. So that's our target update for the cryptos on the podcast.
Love it.
U.S. economy segment. Import prices beat 0.7% versus expectations of 0.5. Export prices beat 0.8% versus expectations of 0.4. Industrial production came in line 0.3% versus expectations of 0.3. Manufacturing production in line 0.1% versus expectations of 0.1. GDP now forecast for third quarter remains at 2.7%. And what else do you have on the U.S. economy segment, Bob?
Nothing in the U.S. economy. I have I'll go into this a little bit more in the why, but the UK is in a pile of shoes.
Before you get to that, what's the latest on the Fed watch for Yellen and who is it?
In terms of
Yellen met with Trump this week. A bunch of these
Trump this week. She's not on the short list. Jerome Powell, who's currently a Fed governor of, I don't know where, I can look real quick, but he's currently a Fed governor. Jerome Powell is member of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, took office in 2012, former investment banker. He is head of I don't know. He's on the board of governors. Anyway, he is the favorite of Steve Mnuchin, which makes him almost by default one of the. It's going to be so far. It's going to be him or John Taylor. John Taylor is a Stanford economics professor who also created
the Taylor rule.
Yeah, it's John Taylor of the Taylor rule. He's one of the guys that he's not the only one, but he's one of the guys that created the Taylor rule. The Taylor rule essentially says that for every percent that inflation goes up, interest rates should go up more than 1%. And there's math behind it, but that's essentially what it is. So the idea the markets had was that if John Taylor comes in, then rates have to go to 3% or higher. That's not necessarily the case because it involves the neutral rate of inflation, which is different than the rate we see in CPI. Again, we don't need to go into that. But the market took that to be a hawkish appointment. Jerome Powell would be more of status quo, lower interest rates for longer. He's not a dove. He's considered to be neutral. But he's extremely popular amongst these quote-unquote financiers of the world like Steve Mnuchin, who is now the Secretary of the Treasury, obviously. So Jerome H. Powell, known as Jay Powell, and John Taylor, current Board of Governors and current Stanford economics professor and founder of the Taylor Rule. Those are the front runners.
Do you have any preference?
Do I? John Taylor. And the reason I say that is because I think the lack of volatility in the markets that we've seen in the equity markets, in my mind, is because of the excessive, and I don't mean that in a negative way, it's the best word I can come up with to describe it, the excessive communication by the Fed and the consistency of their actions. How we're going to raise rates 3 times. Well, now they're about to. We're going to continue to raise rates. We're going to taper. We're going to end QE. They say it and then they do it. The Taylor rule gives even more clarity because you could actually do the math of where rates are going, and it would be a rules-based Fed. So that is more clarity, and more clarity is good because then you can do better research on the markets and what you want to do. But I wouldn't be against Jerome Powell. He's been there. He's not going to have to learn the ropes. He's trusted, and I would say even he is admired by other Fed governors and by Mnuchin, who I like. So. But my preference is Taylor of the two. I like both.
Well, now you can tie into the international segment and what's going on with Great Britain. And
Mark Carney, the governor of the Bank of England, in a giant steaming pile of, he is just in it. I'm going to save the rest for my why. But they're going to raise rates in November. It's almost assured, 90% probability or so, that the Bank of England is going to raise rates, and that is liable to just absolutely damage, if not crush, the UK economy, especially with the way Brexit is going. But I'm going to talk about that more in my why. But they're raising rates November 2nd. Carney as much as said so in the last speech that he gave. He's a Canadian, by the way. It's interesting to watch the head of the Bank of England speak to Parliament with no British accent. So it's kind of funny. But super smart guy, doesn't have a whole lot of choice, and I'll go into that more in the why. And the pound is reflecting that. The pound just is continuing to weaken against the dollar specifically, but more against the euro.
Well, I don't have anything on the international market, so why don't you just go into your why right now?
Today's edition of The What and the Why is brought to you by Motive Wave Software. Motive Wave Software is a well-established developer of easy-to-use, full-featured charting, analysis, and trading software built for the individual trader. Motive Wave offers the best charting tools used by the pros, such as Elliott Wave, Fibonacci, Gartley, Gannon ratio analysis, but it's presented in a very easy-to-use way. Motive Wave has a product to fit any budget and any trading style, and one of the very best features, it's available on Windows and Mac. So go to pathtradingpartners.com right now to get your 14-day free trial, and then visit them at motivewave.com.
All right, so my why is what we're seeing right now. And by the way, the sterling is up right now as we speak, change on the day, but it gapped up and it fell down from there. On a weekly chart, it went to the bottom of the rotation zone. The rotation zone is wide but flattened. So maybe, Mike, in your what, you could look at that a little bit too. But essentially what is happening here with the Bank of England is they have to raise rates because they need to strengthen their currency. They essentially are, they're in fifth place in terms of productivity in the G7, behind Japan and Italy. Everyone's ahead of Italy. I mean, Italy's like 22nd in the world in productivity. I am Italian, and I come from a culture of people who complain about work. But the Japanese are only 16 pence behind the UK if you were to measure it in sterling in terms of productivity per person per hour worked. Every other G7 nation is ahead of them by a lot. Globally, the UK is in 17th place in productivity. They were 16th last year. So they're falling in terms of their world standing in productivity. So what that does is when your currency is weak, your workers don't produce enough goods. They're not productive enough to offset the demand for those goods. Inflation comes into your country when your currency is weak and you're an import economy, because obviously you put your currency out there, you exchange it into the currency that you're purchasing goods with, and if your currency is weak, it takes more of your currencies to purchase those goods. So you end up importing inflation. So the demand for domestic goods rises, but your productivity is low. Therefore, it becomes a case of an isolated case of too few dollars, or in this case, sterling, too many sterling, chasing too few goods. And the productivity of your workers is not able to produce more of those goods without hiring more people. And where does Brexit come into that? If Brexit hurts the ability for the UK to bring foreigners in to fill some of those roles, then that just means higher wages in the form of overtime of the current employees, which just means higher prices for the domestic goods as well. So that's the problem for a country like the UK when they import inflation and they don't produce enough goods and services and their productivity is low. Now, if you go to a country like Norway or even the US where productivity is high, the current workforce can generally produce more. That's called slack. The UK doesn't have a lot of slack because their productivity is so poor. So Mark Carney is in it. I mean, it's difficult to fix that problem. You need to strengthen the currency into an economy that's not that strong. The UK's job market, in terms of unemployment, is at a 42-year low. That's how many UK citizens are actually working. It's at a 42-year low, their unemployment rate. So they don't have a lot of room. So he has to strengthen the currency in order to bring inflation down. He has to raise rates into a weak economy. I've talked about our Fed potentially raising rate into lower inflation than they'd like, but at least the economy is strong here. Not as strong as we like, but certainly it's not weak. The UK doesn't have that luxury. They have a weak economy, they have a low unemployment rate, and they have low productivity, and that is a real issue. So I would expect the UK stock market to suffer, the FTSE will probably suffer, and the sterling will rally, which, again, that should help prices, but we'll see how much it rallies, because if he's not ready to go into a rate hike cycle, which could really send them into a tailspin, considering that Brexit is going on, there's not a lot of good options. And this is an example of why central banks get too much credit and too much blame. There's just not much Mark Carney at the Bank of England can do about the poor progress of Brexit talks and about this sort of situation for workers from other countries working in the UK. There's just not much he can do about it, and he'll get the blame. He'll get the blame for raising rates and causing a recession. So go easy on the central bankers out there, kids. That's my why.
So you expect the pound to rally?
I do. I don't know what the charts are saying, but fundamentally I would expect the pound to rally because I don't think he can just raise rates once. The one rate hike's priced in right now, and the pound hasn't done that much.
No, it's interesting because just on the chart, if we get a close bet, we're trading right now at 131.82. We have a really strong line in the sand now with channel line key moving averages on the weekly chart. If we get a close below 130, the rally's over in my book with the technicals.
Good to know.
So that's the key line in the sand. If we do get a close below 130, first target about 128.50 area, second target 127.30 area. Now, if we rotate back up, we have, in order to resume the up move, we do have to get about a close above 133.50 on a weekly basis to resume an up move. And then the first target on that would be 135.60.
Yep, we will look for that on Friday of next week because it's not going to happen today.
So that's the longer term, both up and down, bullish and bearish analysis of the pound US dollar, which I guess just became my what?
There it is. Fancy how that happens.
Fancy. That is fancy. And other quick what news? Way back when? Oh, wow. When was that put in place? Back on September 1st, put out targets for the NASDAQ, which was 61.34. Mm-hmm. What was the high of this week? 61.32.75. So essentially target hit. That was back from September 1st targets. And also we talked a while ago about the Wal-Mart targets. Let me just give an update on there. Wal-Mart stock drastically outperforming Amazon. Amazon caught in a nice horizontal channel, but Walmart, we talked about a full target being 87.81 to 88.14. Right now trading 86.65. We put out that call. It was trading right around 80.47.
Nice.
So there's another one. Walmart, I would not be surprised to either see it pause for a bit or pull back a bit. It's getting overextended from its weekly rotation zone, but not any still pullback is still a buy on Walmart for me.
All right, cool.
That's all I have.
All right. Well, good show, guys. Thanks for having me on again. Oh, yeah, I'm one of you. Never mind.
And I should get more credit for getting Zappa in the show.
I'm not giving you any credit for getting Zappa in the show.
Disappointed, and after almost 100 shows, I got him in, totally legitimate, with a 70-year-old audio manufacturer going out of business, liquidating.
You know why they're going out of business? Because they haven't been able to carve out a niche in the marketplace.
Oh.
I'm impressed by that, quite frankly.
That's as bad as a robot fight.
As bad as a bad robot fight.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't comment on the robot fight since you haven't watched it yet, Bob.
Stafford is very, what's the word? Fair in his critique of entertainment.
I disagree.
No, I don't, because, like, here's a guy.
I disagree.
And he's like, this is crap. Okay, thank you. I got to go.
Okay.
I've got 3% left on this computer.